Hi, my name is Mark Netchma. I'm from Newsweed.com. Today is June the 25th, 2021, and we'd like to report some of the news uh, and some commentary as we have learned it. The big news of the day is that Derek Chauvin has been sentenced to 22 years in jail. He possibly could have gotten 40 years. George Floyd's family testified in court today, and even their 7-year-old daughter testified via cell phone saying that she had always asked about him all the time, him meaning George Floyd. Terrence Floyd, George's brother, asked Chauvin in court today, "What was going through your head as your knee was on my brother's neck?" Oddly enough, Carolyn Paulinty, Chauvin's mother, said, "When you sentence my son, you will also be sentencing me." That's a very good point. Perhaps there was prejudice in the home, or perhaps there was a negative feeling about some people. It's hard to figure out. She also said that she won't be able to hug her son ever again until he gets out of jail. But Floyd's family responded saying they will never see George Floyd again. This was a dynamic case that affected all of America, and one thing led to another. It was a cause and effect. George Floyd getting high and acting up at a store, passing a bill, and then, of course, the policeman doing his job, but to the extent that there was anger in him and he kept his knee on George Floyd's neck even after George Floyd said he couldn't breathe. If we could go back in time, if we could all take steps backwards and prevent the actions that create such turmoil, this is what we should really think about. Never get mad, maybe never get high, maybe never think about passing a bad bill, or never, ever have hate in your heart when you're a policeman. Who knows? In other news, in the rock and roll area, in every era, the rock stars, it gets somewhat we all deserve. Today, Winston Marshall is the perfect rock star for 2021. He quit his band after being upset. After a book he read. From rock star to woke star, rock and roll has truly gone to the dogs when a band member cancels himself for reading a book. He was upset over his online reaction to praise for a right-wing book. My God, Jimi Hendrix and so many other rock stars, I recall them breaking up hotel rooms and having love affairs with strange people. That's all unacceptable now. What do you think, Farrah? What's going on? I'm not sure. Anyway, rock and roll is dead, 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 and buried. I hope they don't start canceling the lyrics out of the rock and roll songs that I loved and cried to in the 70s. Oh my God. In other news, the U.S. Supreme Court on Friday ruled that federal COVID-19 funds can go specifically to created corporations for indigenous Alaskans, even though they are not officially recognized as tribal governments in cases pitting groups of indigenous Americans against each other. For instance, the Navajo Indian tribe received tremendous amounts of vaccine, and they're mostly vaccinated now. But these indigenous tribes, which aren't recognized as Indian tribes in Alaska, were kind of getting shortchanged. The judges' 6-3 rule said that indigenous corporations are eligible to receive funding intended for tribal governments under the 2020 Coronavirus Aid, Relief and Economic Security Act, known as CARES Act. About $533 million in funding hinged on the case's outcome. Isn't that funny? We put people against each other, and even the indigenous people, the Indian tribes, try to shortchange each other. Isn't that human nature? And I guess that's why we have laws. Let me get to this. Alaska court has heard a challenge to the Arctic refuge oil leases. Conservation groups described the sale as a last-minute push by the Trump administration to help secure drilling rights. Well, when we end up not having enough electricity for our cars, we better start thinking about how these power plants generate electricity. In many cases, it's oil or coal or natural gas. If we end up having a very hot, unair-conditioned summer and very side-of-the-road vehicles one day because we don't have enough electricity, we better start asking ourselves about today's decisions. What do you think? Oil prices are jumping, oddly enough. I guess because we put so many limits on drilling, prices of oil were up to about $74 a barrel. Now, just a year ago, we had negative prices on oil, and we had tankers sitting out at sea because nobody wanted to take the oil in because we weren't using gasoline because we had a COVID crisis. It's interesting how the economy moves on current events, and I hope that all of you are paying attention, especially if you're investors, to what might happen when we make decisions or let politicians make big decisions like shutting down economies or eliminating fossil fuels. How's that Tesla running? In Lebanon, they've reduced critical fuel subsidies among the petrol crisis. Big trouble in Lebanon, no electricity, big problems. Let's hope that things get better there. Here's an interesting story. In El Salvador, a nation of approximately 6 million people, they're going to give $30 of Bitcoin to everybody who has a digital wallet. Question, do they even have cell phones there, or does everyone have cell phones there? Anyway, I've done the calculation. It should end up being about $180 million they're going to give to Salvadorans. Now, I realize that they're just as sophisticated as we are, but we do have so many Salvadorans coming to America because of poverty or gang violence. So let's hope that none of that money is stolen by the gangs, and let's hope that the economy does get better for the implementation of crypto. I'm on the fence as far as whether crypto is good or not, but it does seem like the price fluctuates, that there must be a real future for it, especially when an entire country in South America, which could spread across to many other countries, adopts crypto, especially since we do have immigrants coming here and need to transfer money back and forth. Perhaps with crypto, it would make things better. I would say Western Union, heads up. You might be losing a lot of fees. John McAfee's widow blames the U.S. for his death. I guess she suspects somebody knocked him off in the Spanish prison. Well, we've seen these kind of cases very often with people dying in prison from suicide. But quite frankly, what else can you do in prison besides either get tough or get out? Russia has sent some jets over to Mediterranean drills amid the rift with the UK. Hey, don't mess with Russia. Let's just all show them a little bit more respect so that we don't have a war. Because the last thing we need is Joe Biden whispering, saying, we might go to war. Like he says, we have money for people. In Miami, very sad situation. The love in my heart is for construction, of course, and it's hard to believe that a building could collapse. Over here at Newsweed, we're suspecting that there was some foul play or some type of accident, or perhaps even some of the foundation might have given way, but that doesn't make sense. Now there's a fire there, and they're trying to douse the fire, but the smoke is there. The smoke could kill any survivors. The water could kill any survivors. I think we just have to bring in some big equipment and start moving things as quickly as possible and develop a new protocol. Because if we're going to save anybody, it's got to be now. I just hope that things work out well then. That's the news for today. Lots of things happening in the financial markets always. Lots of things happening around the world. Just remember, it's never as it seems. Let's hope and pray that we can bring back rock and roll, baby, because that's when the days were good. Thanks so much. I'm Mark Nedgeman for Newsweed.